Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Kellen here with Droid Life. Galaxy Note 7 obviously in front of me. So what we want to do today as we lead up to our official review of it is talk about the first 10 things you should do if you happen to buy one. Now, because this is quite the advanced phone, there may be more than 10 things you should do to first set this up. There may be 15 to 20. We've trimmed it down to 10 just to sort of get you going, and then we'll have tips and tricks and stuff like that to get you further into this. Either way, let's jump into the number one thing we tend to always recommend, and that's get your security straight. So this does have a fingerprint reader, so obviously setting up fingerprint so that you can unlock that way is always a good thing. That sort of convenience factor plus the security of it is a good thing. But remember, this phone also has an iris scanner. So whether you think an iris scanner is useful or gimmicky, whatever, I sort of fall somewhere in between, you may want to consider setting it up. Or you could set up fingerprint, no iris, or just iris, or you can actually set up both. So let's actually talk about that quickly. So in your settings menu, now if you have a Verizon version, your settings is going to look a little bit different than this. But basically what you're looking for is the lock screen and security section. So in lock screen and security, you're going to go ahead and set up a secure lock. So that means pattern, pin, or password. Now, once you have that, you can then start going into fingerprints and irises. And in there, you can see there's actually a toggle for each one if you do have those set up. Now, fingerprints, you guys have seen this a number of times, but this does have a fingerprint reader in the home button. I tend to set up to 3 or 4 different fingerprints. I use both thumbs because I pull my phone out of each pocket, and then your thumb is right there ready to be used as an unlock, or my index fingers, because when this is lying on a table, you can use it that way. So those are the fingers I set up. To go through that, you tap add a finger. Walks you through a couple of steps where you touch on the sensor until it reads it. You guys, again, have seen this a number of times. Irises, on the other hand, are a little bit different. So we go into irises and you unlock. And you'll walk through a process that essentially tells you to hold the phone up in front of your eye, and then you open your eyes pretty wide, and then it scans your eyes. And similar to the fingerprint, you can use your eyes then to verify Samsung accounts, web sign-ins, and even unlock the phone. And so you do want to check that box if you do want to use this to unlock your phone. So if we back out then and just lock the phone, you can see I have fingerprint set up. So that works. Then I also have the swipe up to get into the irises, and you just kind of hold that up to your eyes if you can do that, and then it unlocks. Now I know it's sort of tough to catch that on camera, but so you can do either one, or you can have both set up, which is kind of a cool deal. So after getting your security all situated, I would say let's next set up our always on display. So always on display you'll find in settings, display, and then if we scroll down a little bit, you see there's an option here for always on display. Now this was introduced with the S7, I believe, initially, and what it allows you to do is utilize your AMOLED display to show things like the time, date, battery percentage. And then now this year with the Note 7, or I should say this time with the Note 7, you can also see notification icons. So you know if you have a Hangouts message waiting you, or inbox or Gmail or what have you. So in here you can toggle it to on or off. And then there's also an option for layouts that'll show you different clock styles and arrangements. You can decide if you want it to show just an image or calendar. There's a bunch of settings in here you may want to look at. If you're like me and definitely love the notification aspect of it, you definitely want to leave that toggled on. Another thing you can also do is set a schedule. So if you don't want this to be on all the time, particularly let's say when you're at night or when you're in bed, you can set a start and an end time so that it will no longer be on, and then you just kind of sort of set it, forget it, and it comes on and off when you need it to. But definitely one of my favorite features that I would say turn on, and no, it doesn't seem to affect my battery all that much. If we stay in settings, there's a section right here called wallpapers and themes, and this would be the third thing we're recommending you do. So in this section, you can change wallpapers, which are a big deal because everyone likes to customize their phones a little bit, right? Themes is something though I would definitely take a look at in case you don't like this sort of white or light gray and blue setup that Samsung ships out of the box. If you go into themes, you can see I've got a few downloaded here, but they've got themes that they recommend, and there's dark and neon, and there's light themes, and there's material themes, and all of that stuff. And if you find one you want, you just go into it, download it. Some of these do cost money though, but there's plenty of free stuff out there. And once you download and then install them or apply them, you can see it really can change the look of your phone. So theme is just kind of one of those fun things that's really become a powerful feature with the phone. If you want to get that custom look, I would suggest taking a look at it. The next thing I would then say is jump into your app drawer. And this is for those of you that are not using a third-party launcher like Google Now or Nova or something like that. If you're using the stock launcher, you're going to want to go in here and arrange things the way you want. Now, the first time you boot this phone up, you're probably going to have folders up here with apps in it for T-Mobile or AT&T's apps, plus Google apps, plus Samsung apps, and those won't show up in the app drawer. They're just in these folders. So you can decide if you want to fix that stuff. And how you do that is hit this little menu up here, and you'll see an edit button. And this is where you can tap to uninstall things. You can also tap and drag things and create folders, and you can name those folders and add more apps to those. And all sorts of things like that. You can also tap on this and remove folders in case you want to take all of the apps that are in a folder and place them back in your app drawer. And then you can also click done, and then you're just sort of finished there. The other thing you want to do is each time you install new apps, or if you remove a folder, you can see everything goes to the back of the list. So every single time that happens, if you're like me and like things in alphabetical order, you have to hit that menu, then go A to Z, then click save, and then things go back into alphabetical order. So just something to keep in mind to help you stay organized in there. I would definitely take a look at that. The next thing I would say is then let's set up our home screen. You'll notice with a long press here, this gets you into sort of the home screen editor. And yes, I really only do use a single home screen. But if you want to add more home screens, there's a plus button over here. You can go down into here and get into your widgets. And this stuff you basically just drag and drop wherever you want. If you long press again, you can get a shortcut into your wallpapers and themes, which we just talked about. You can also change the screen grid from 5x5 to 4x5 or 4x4, and that'll adjust how all of these show. So you can see as I tap those, it really moves things around. Something to consider as well. And then finally, if we go back here, you can swipe over, and the Flipboard briefing is still a part of Samsung phones. I tend to turn that off just because I don't use it. But if you want to use that, that's kind of a good new news aggregator. And you can customize that to however you want. But definitely get your home screen in order, as that's just something that'll help you better utilize your phone. From there then, since we're still customizing, we'll go into the quick toggles or your notification shade. So if we swipe this, well, you can do 2 swipe downs to expand it and show all of them, or you can do a double finger swipe and that'll get you in there. But what you want to do is get into this sort of view, and then from there you want to start thinking about editing these and arranging these. So you can see when mine's just with single swipe down, I have Wi-Fi shortcut, Bluetooth, my portrait or landscape toggle, always on display, and do not disturb. If you want to rearrange these things, you just kind of grab and long press, and then you can move these around into whatever order you want, and then you just let go, and then that will then stay there. If you don't want something to be there, you can just drag it down to the bottom, and these things will then be out of your way and they won't be a part of it at all. So you can just sort of drag things around and get rid of them. And then you can drag things up and add them if they're down here and you want them and whatnot. So just something to keep in mind. I don't even want that down here. So just something to keep in mind to really get that organized so that you're best utilizing the space, and since you're in this area quite often. So the next thing then, I'll say turn on blue light filter, and you'll notice I do have a shortcut for that. So blue light filter, for those not familiar, is essentially a filter that comes on and changes the screen to not have much blue, if any blue at all, and it sort of gives it this warm amber tint. And when you want this on is at night, and you want it on at night because you're looking at your phone in the dark or whatever. That sort of warmer tint is easier on your eyes than the blue is. I believe the blue even tends to keep people awake longer at night. And I believe there's studies and things on that. Either way, the whole idea is that warmer tone is easier on your eyes and things like that. So if you do turn that on, you can see immediately it just goes to this sort of amberish color. And you can make that redder or warmer or cooler, whichever way you want to go with it. But it's really a handy thing. And trust me, once you use it for the first time, I think you'll really appreciate and understand why it's a pretty cool setting. If you go into more settings, there's some other things you can customize in here. And just so you're aware, you'll find that in quick toggles. If you don't find it there, you can go into settings display, and it's also right there. So if we tap on that, one of the cool things you can do is set a schedule for when it comes on. I have mine set to come on from sunset to sunrise. So as the sun goes down, and this does use your location, by the way. So as the sun goes down, this thing slowly starts turning into this sort of amberish color where the blue light filter comes on, and then it stays that way until the next morning when the sun comes up. So it's definitely a cool little feature. You should certainly look into it. And speaking of setting schedules, if we swipe this back down, you'll notice I use Do Not Disturb a lot. Now, Do Not Disturb is one of those set it and forget it things that I feel like everyone should just use. You know, you don't want your phone coming on and beeping for simple notifications in the middle of the night. And this is how you do it. If you set up a schedule, and I talk about this in just about every video these days, like I have mine to come on every single day at 11:30 at night and end the next day at 6 a.m. And essentially what happens during that time is I don't get notifications unless they're really, really important. And you can set up in the exceptions what you want to be able to come through, like your alarms, pretty important. Repeat callers in case maybe it's an emergency and somebody's calling you over and over, those will eventually come through. Or you can set it to just come through from your favorites and all of that stuff. So you can customize some of this stuff, but Do Not Disturb is one of those things you set up with your phone initially, and then you just don't really have to worry about it because then it just comes on as a schedule. So since this is an Edge phone, we'll talk about the next thing, which is the Edge features. So if you swipe out this side here, these get into the Edge features. Now these used to be exclusive to the S7 Edge, S6 Edge, S6 Edge Plus, but now they're also in this Note because it does have that dual edge display. So in here, you can do some sort of fun things. If we swipe out our Edge, and if you're not familiar with it, there is this little sort of tab that peeks out from the side, and that's how you get into it. You can see I have a tab in here for weather. I have one for my favorite apps that I use often. Here's some sports scores with favorite teams. Here's Yahoo News, which you can filter by news and entertainment and sports. Here's CNN coverage, and then there's back to the weather. So you want to set these up however you want. You can also add or remove columns, and you do that by this little settings button down here. This takes you into a layout where you can even turn the Edge panels off completely, or you can check or uncheck the boxes for things you want to show. One of them you might want to consider is a People Edge for your favorite people that you contact often. Also, the calendar is a pretty handy one. And then there's Samsung's bookmark app for their internet browser. There's quick tools like with a ruler, I think is still one of them. Finance, for those of you in finance. You get the idea. There's even a download button up top in case you want to go into the Samsung store and try to find more. But it's kind of one of those things that since it has Edge features, you may want to at least browse around in there and see if there's something that looks like it might be useful. I've really trimmed mine down to some of these really simple things. But one of the cool things is you can have any app open and then swipe that out and then get into your other favorite apps. One of the other things to think about is when you're in this, if you jump into handle settings, you can adjust the transparency of the little tab that sticks out. You can adjust the position of it, which means sliding it up or down or flipping it from left to right, also the size of it. So it's one of those things you're going to want to play with until you get just right. But it has an Edge display on it, so you may as well start taking advantage of it. All right, now the final trick is obviously related to the S Pen. So this phone has a pen in it. You may as well get some use out of it. Otherwise, why are you buying a Note? So I would say just sort of figure out some of the tricks here with the S Pen, and there's a whole bunch of them. I'm just going to show you a couple. But one of the most useful is you pull the phone out of your pocket. You haven't unlocked it, but if you pop the pen out, it immediately goes into this mode where you can start writing on it. So star, circle, smiley face. You get it. You can draw notes on it in this sort of black and white format. You can even hit this down arrow in case you need more area to draw on. And then you can save, delete, whatever you want to do. You can save that, and that goes into your Samsung Notes app. And it actually tells you that right there. So if we unlock here, you can see I've got a note saved there. I can actually tap on that, and it'll open then the note in Samsung Notes. But let's go back home for a second. So with the S Pen out, you'll notice you have this sort of floating quick shortcut bar or button. And if you tap on that, it opens up your shortcuts. And so from here, just think about some things like Smart Select. So if I use Smart Select, and this is just a simple example, but I can drag over these icons. And you could do this anywhere, maybe a web page or something like that. And one of the cool things you can do is extract text. And if I tap that, it then takes all the text that I just smartly selected there and puts them in essentially a text file that I can then share. So I can tap share and send that to an email on myself, a text message, whatever. And that's just text that then pulled from the image it took on the screen. It's just one of those cool little features that may come in handy here and there. If we back out and go back into this, obviously one of the biggest things is screen write. So from any screen, if you tap screen write, it takes a screenshot of where you're at, and then you can draw right on top of that, write notes, directions, send drafts to people. You get the idea there. You can back out of that and discard. And then the last thing I will tell you is you should really think about customizing this menu. So if you're in this area and you tap this plus, this will allow you to actually change the shortcuts that show up in that menu. So you've got minus buttons over here so you can get rid of them, or you can scroll through here and find an app that may be useful. Maybe you want the calculator over there so you can use this to do calculator, or you can change some of these Samsung shortcuts. I had photos in there at one time. Google Keep allows for pen input, so it's just one of those things to tweak. And then if you put the pen back in, that goes away. All right, so that's been just the first 10 things I would recommend you do with your Galaxy Note 7. There's more to talk about. Trust me, we will have a tips and tricks video up shortly. But for now, though, hopefully that gives you a good start. We're Droid Life. Peace.